Hello. Perfect.
Cool. Cool. Hi everyone, and welcome to our live Facebook chat and webinar around the new rubbish and recycling service. My name is Poppy, and I'm part of the project team working on the new rubbish and recycling service. I have here with me Trent Fowles, who is our compliance manager, and we've also got Councillor O'Leary joining us as well.
All right, I believe we'll be getting some questions coming through. Okay, first question from Nita. Do we put newspaper in the yellow bin? It's a pretty easy one, and that's a definite yes.
Yeah, so the yellow bin is for your plastics, tins, cans, paper and cardboard. So newspapers can just go in there along with all of those other ones.
No need to put them aside like you have in the past for a separate collection. It all goes in together. Right, next one. Bear with us, this is a new thing to us working through. So. All right. Any other questions coming through? Maybe while we're waiting for, oh, here we go.
Yeah. So a question from Cooper. How will they pick up bins if a car is parked in the way? Yeah, this is a really great question. And we have had this a couple times. There are some areas of the city where there are lots of commuter parking and other parking around streets. So we've worked with our contractor to have a look at some of these situations. And we've got some different collection methodologies that we can use. So for example, instead of using a sidearm truck where the arm automatically reaches out and lifts the bin, they will use something which is called a low entry vehicle, where the driver can jump out and move the bins to the truck and empty them at the back of the truck instead. And that way we get around the cars parked in the way and things like that.
Next question we got here from Danielle. Can I put vacuum dust in the food scraps bin if it has plastic particles in it? And the answer is no. However, you can, it's all depending on what you're vacuuming up, really. If you've got a synthetic carpet that you're vacuuming, it's quite likely that you will be vacuuming up plastic particles. Obviously, if you accidentally vacuum up the kid's Lego, that's not going to go in the food scraps bin either. But if it's vacuuming off a wooden floor, that should be fine to go in.
Yep. Moving on to the next one. We've got a question here from Michelle. Why can't batteries go in the rubbish bin and where do I put them? So yeah, this is a good question. And batteries can't go into the rubbish bin because they can actually cause a bit of a hazard. So for things like when they go into the trucks, they can cause fires and other hazards. So they are able to be taken to the refuse transfer station on Lincoln Street, or there are some recycling options available in the community as well. We have some more information about that on our Fight the Landfill website, so you can have a look on there. Next one.
All right. Sarah, can I put black rubbish bags inside the red rubbish bin? Yes, you can. You don't need to. That's, I guess, your choice. It depends how you're collecting the rubbish inside your house. But look, one of the intent of the wheelie bins of the service is that we get rid of the black bags. So it's what you want to put your waste into to put into. But hey, you can actually do without that black bag. There's no need for a liner within those bins.
That kind of answers Amy's question as well.
So Amy's question was, we have a large built-in kitchen bin that we will line with a rubbish bag. I'm guessing we can't put it in our new bin. Well, yeah, kind of answered that. Definitely not in the food bin with plastic bags, but the general waste, yes.
Cool. So moving on to Joanne. We have a question here from Joanne asking, where do hot ashes go? So hot ashes can't go in any of the new bins because they will damage the bins most likely. So yeah, they shouldn't go into any of the new bins. Apparently, cooled ash is quite good for gardens and stuff, I've heard this morning.
It is.
So that could be a good alternative, is once they've cooled down, spread them on the garden because it's meant to be quite good for the soil.
Hey.
A question for Angela to answer.
Question from me, why is the service changing? Look, for a very long time, certainly the decade that I've been on council, people have been asking for this. They've been asking for a wheelie bin service, in part because it's actually easier to move wheelie bins around, but also more importantly because they want to do their bit for the environment. Also, government is changing the costs for infill and for landfill, and that is going to rise significantly, and that would have to be a cost that was passed on to the ratepayer. Plus, want to do it ones. Great question to ask. Thank you.
Next question we got from Nicole. Extra glass, where can we take this for recycling? All right, obviously it is a change with the new service and just having the one crate out for glass. There is always the option to take the glass to the transfer station on Lincoln Street. There's no charge associated with getting rid of the glass there. So that's the easiest solution around it.
Cool. Question here from Kirsty. Can I put old shoes in the recycling bin? Definitely not. Old shoes, if they're in good condition, we'd suggest maybe donating them to an op shop or a charity or something like that. If not, they would need to go into the rubbish.
And we don't want to put the guys at the recycling facility through that either, dealing with people's old shoes.
Cool.
All right. Mel, what happens if the bin is lost or stolen? Do we have to pay to have them replaced? Now, with our new bins, there's something different about them, the fact that we've got a chip in them that ties the bin back to the home, the resident that's owns it, well not owns it, but where it stays. And if they are lost or stolen and they pop up elsewhere around the city, we will actually know where they are. So if they're stolen, no, you do not have to pay for them to be replaced. Any sort of purposeful damage or anything like that's probably a different story. But if they go walkies, give us a call and we'll work out a solution in terms of getting you a new one back there.
And another one for Angela to answer here. How did we decide on this new service?
Gosh, it was feels like such a long time ago, but it was a really long process. And as I said, over the last minimum decade, we've had submissions from the public at every annual plan, at every 10-year plan, requesting council to look at a new way of delivering curbside rubbish. So that sort of started the process off. Council, of course, went through substantial and took a long time business cases. We looked at a whole lot of options. Once we got narrowed some of those options down, we went to the public. We got, I think it was 2,000 or nearly 3,000 submissions, the most public submissions we've had ever on council record, and the overwhelming majority of those from the public were to support this new service. So it was a really long process, and we certainly took the public along with us. And the service that we're about to launch in 24 hours, I think, is the one that was strongly requested by the people of Hamilton. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question we've got in is from Carolyn, and can we use biodegradable bags to line the food scraps bin? We're not able to use any kind of bag in the food scraps bin, be that labelled biodegradable, compostable, plastic or otherwise. And the reason for that is because at the moment there's no standard in New Zealand for what can be labelled compostable or biodegradable. So it's safer to just leave those out so that they don't contaminate our food scraps system. If you do want to line your bin with something, we would suggest brown paper, newspaper. Apparently cabbage leaves work really well as a liner as well. Otherwise, just put the food scrap straight in there and then just give it a rinse at the end of each week after it's been collected.
Can I add a comment to that too? At the start of the year, I visited Hampton Downs, where all of our food scraps are going to be composted, and I saw through the composting chain just how much of those so-called biodegradable bags clogged up the system and were still in what looked like great compost. So yeah, definitely please don't use them.
It's quite a debatable one at the moment, and yeah, what's biodegradable is really the big question. So we really want some guidance from central government around putting some standards out there for biodegradable material, because what's biodegradable for composting overseas may not be here. So. All right.
Next one.
Yep, we got Josh. Where should I put garden waste? Back in the garden is always a good place to compost. Look, there's no capacity within the food waste, and that's not the intent of the food waste bin to put garden waste. Our whole service is about reducing what goes to landfill. So we really like you to think about what you put in the rubbish bin. So garden waste is not ideal for that whatsoever. There are places to take it. Obviously, we've got the Hamilton Organic Centre, and once again the transfer station where they will separate out green waste. So there's a couple of options. There are a lot of really good private services out there as well that offer a garden waste collection from your home. So there's a few options out there, but not in the bins, please.
Cool. So another question here from Ruby. Did we think about cul-de-sacs when planning the new service? It might be tricky for some trucks to get around and pick up the bins. Yep, we definitely understand that there are some areas around the city, like cul-de-sacs, where the space might be shared by multiple households. So the curbside space where to put your bins. So we've kind of worked around some solutions for this. One off the top of my head is about when you're presenting the bins, perhaps putting the wheelie bin at the front closest to the road, and then the smaller bins stacked behind it, and that will help save the space if you're sharing it with neighbours. And again, when we were talking about the parked cars and things like that, we have raised this with the contractor, and we've looked at different examples, and we're confident that they can still be serviced. It will be an education, a lot of education work around these areas, but we will be working with residents to assess these areas and come up with the right solutions.
It's always a challenging one, and I think just adding to that around the the placement of the bins. Ideally, we'd always like to have the bin out in front of our own home, but sometimes it's practical just to move it along the street a little bit where there is space. So, we appreciate that extra bit that people have to go to put the bins in the right place so they're easy for collection. And it's all about we want one service the same for the city, so it's standardisation.
So, question here from Zita. I haven't received my food scrap bin or the booklet. What do I do? If you could just get in touch with our customer service team, and the details are on our Facebook page, I believe, or you can message us via Facebook, and we can look into that for you and get a new booklet out as well.
Julie, can I use a compostable bag in the red bin? Yes, you can. We'd prefer you used a compostable bag in the red bin rather than a plastic bag. So yeah, and that will just help with what's going to the landfill and break down faster than a plastic bag would.
But remember, you don't have to use a bag in the red bin at all if you don't want to. You can just place the rubbish loose into the bin. So the next question is from Quinn. Why is the red bin so small? So when we looked at what was in people's black bags, we actually found that a lot of it was food scraps. Almost 50% by weight of what was in people's black bags was their food scraps. And we're now taking that out of black bags with the new service and essentially taking it out of the red bin because we're introducing the food scraps bin instead. So that will take a lot of what is currently thrown to landfill away, and then we can use that to compost it. The same for the plastics. We're increasing what can go into the yellow bin from 1s to 2s to 1s to 7s, plastics type 1 to 7. So again, that's taken away from the black bags or the red bin. So for most residents across the city, the size of the red bin will suffice. Anything to add?
No, it's perfect. Cool. Layla, I normally wrap my leftovers or bones. Do I put this in the food scraps bin? Yes, you do. That's one of the great things about the food scraps bin. It takes all food scraps, bones, shellfish shells, the technology, the process that they use for the composting allows for those to be broken down. So yeah, a little bit different to your normal home compost. A lot more options available. So yeah, you can throw that bone straight in there. Obviously it's got to fit. But,
Serena, can any paper towels go in the green bin? Yep, you can put kitchen paper towels in the green bin. Please don't put any kind of tissues or anything like that, kind of stuff that you use to blow your nose or anything like that. That can't go into the green bin. That needs to go into the red one. But just your standard kitchen paper towels can go into the food scraps bin.
And don't put any wipes in of any kind.
no, definitely
Good
not.
point.
We don't like wipes.
No, we don't like wipes. And don't flush them down the toilet either. They go in the rubbish.
Exactly. Tim, how will I know what bins to put out next week? Is it red week or yellow week? All right, hopefully you've all received a booklet in the mail. And on the back of the booklet, it has a calendar, and there's obviously the 2 different weeks. So you'll either be these are green and blue, but it relates to what we call the red or the yellow week. And by putting in it gives you instructions, and you'll have your information on the side of your bin. It shows you here, and then that will allow you to understand or to identify which day your collection is and what collection it is for that week. If you're unsure, there are other options. Obviously, we've got Fight the Landfill website, and within the next couple of days, we should have up on that where you can actually put in your address, and it will come back and tell you what your collection day is and what your collection type is for that week. Even better, there's an app, Anteno, which is a platform for Hamilton City Council, and if you download that app, and I think you just from usual app place, app store online, that will actually, you punch in your address and it will give you a notification the night before your collection is due. So if you think you're going to forget, that's a really good way to use going forward. And I guess all else fails, give us a call at council, and we can help you out.
So question for me from Ruth: why is rubbish collected fortnightly, and who decided this? Ruth, this was a heavily debated and discussed discussion through the whole public consultation and engagement process. And in the end, we landed on fortnightly for a couple of important things. First of all, as we know, food waste is nearly 50% of what goes to landfill. So with taking that out of the rubbish bin, we thought we won't need a bigger bin. And secondly, again, with increasing the number of plastics and increasing the size of the yellow lid recycling bin, that was another reason why we made that red lid rubbish bin smaller, and therefore also to be collected fortnightly. So I think if everybody does their bit and uses all of the bins appropriately, the fortnightly collection of rubbish should work for everyone. Great question, thank you.
Right, Tina, commercially compostable coffee pods in the food bin, if they use high temp composting technology. Unfortunately, it's not high temperature compost technology, so no, we cannot take compostable coffee pods in the food bin. The composting technology that they use is called gauze composting. It is a faster composting process, but not a high temperature one. So sorry, no on that one.
So the next question we've got here is from James. How many glass bins can I have? This is a great question. So going forward from Monday, you'll only be able to put out 1 crate for glass recycling. And we understand that there are people across the city who have 2 at the moment. The reason for that is because we're removing all the plastics and the tins and cans, because they will go in the yellow bin from now on. So 1 glass crate should be enough for most people. If you do have extra glass recycling, then you can always take it to the transfer station where you can drop it off for free and it will be recycled.
Right. Jade, who washes my food scraps bin if I can't line it with a plastic bag? It kind of comes back to yourself to look after your food scraps bin. But look, the good thing about the food scraps bin is that it's a sealable lid. You know, they're not going to let out odour. You know, if you're concerned, you can have a small caddy that you use inside and transfer it out, you know, keep the food scrap bin in your garage or outside and just put it into that. Look, I believe there are companies out there that do clean bins if you really want to get it done properly. But look, I think they're probably only going to require a rinse every now and then, so it should be okay.
And if you wrap all your food scraps in newspaper, it shouldn't get dirty or grubby.
Another good tip I heard from a resident was if you've got the space, obviously, you can store your food scraps in a carton in the freezer or something like that, and then just pop them in the bin on your collection day, and that keeps them kind of nice and not smelly or anything like that, and then that'll keep your bin cleaner too.
Bex, what happens to the recycled rubbish? Is it actually recycled or just put to landfill? So at the moment, what we're collecting within the recycling bins is plastics 1 to 7, paper and card, and your aluminium and metal cans, and obviously the glass aside. So glass, no problem at all. There's always a market for glass. Paper and card, look, there are issues sort of, even, you know, it's not isolated to Hamilton nationally sometimes, around sort of overflow of product to some of the companies that process it. But that is definitely recycled, and at the moment, I guess probably the plastics is probably the most contentious one. So whilst we are saying put 1 to 7s in there, we've been very open and honest in saying at the moment there are only markets. We can only process 1, 2, and 5 plastics at the moment. So that's your Coke bottles, your milk bottles. The 5s are your ice cream containers, the heavier sort of plastic, but always just check your numbers. Look, we hope nationwide there's no answer to recycling of the plastics 3, 4, 6, and 7. Look, I know central government's really sort of trying to get behind, you know, what we need to do in that space, and there's a few options on the table, particularly around product stewardship and looking at what's been made in the first place and sold to consumers. But look, we're always going to be very open around what we collect and what is recycled and what isn't, if we're unable to at the time. But at the moment, it's 1, 2, and 5 plastics, others unfortunately not. And we're just going to, I believe it would stockpile initially, and then hopefully we'll get a solution. If not, sadly they may have to go to landfill. But I would point out with the plastics, the ones that we aren't recycling currently make up a very small percentage, only about 5% of the total plastics what's going through our service at the moment.
Cool. So the next question is from Ben. Why do our bins have to be out by 7 a.m? Collections will be starting from 7 a.m. under the new rubbish and recycling service, so that's why they need to be out by that time. You can pop them out the night before if you wish, from 5 p.m. onwards. So if 7 a.m. is a bit too early to get up and put your bins out, just pop them out the night before.
And the good thing is that there are bins, they're animal proof. Well, it's going to take a pretty large animal to get into them at least. So, you don't have that worry about putting them out the night before and the neighbour's cat tearing into it and spreading it out all over the place.
Cool. So there's one here for Angela to answer. What are Hamilton City Council's overall waste minimisation goals? And I think you might just be muted there, Angela.
Yes, I was. The rain's getting quite heavy here and I have to sign off after this one. Look, this is a really excellent question. Really, our main vision for our city is to, for waste minimisation, is to reduce waste to landfill. That's the primary goal, but also to look at resource recovery. So that's around reusing, recycling, recovery, and how we look at all of that. We want our city to celebrate our innovation in waste and for everyone to get on board. But yeah, overall, it's about waste minimisation and resource recovery would be our biggest goals. Great question. I have to sign off now and get back to my meeting. Thanks, guys. Great work.
Thank you. Cool. So yeah, we do have to head off now. Thanks everyone for your questions. They were really great. And we will just wrap this up. And if you have any more questions, just pop them in the comments below. But all the information is also on our website, fightthelandfill.co.nz.
Awesome.
Cool. Thanks everyone.
Cheers.